Greetings, guys, gals, non-binary pals, and welcome back to another video. It is a well-known fact that a lot of us in therapy, or who need therapy, are in therapy or need therapy because the people around us need therapy. You know, it's this big cycle of like, I need therapy because the people around me growing up were not emotionally regulated. And so now I'm having to clean up that mess myself. And a lot of us are sort of in that similar position. I am a firm believer that like if everyone got therapy, the world would be a better place. But you know, that's not gonna happen. So here we are. Another thing we all know is that here on my channel, we love to look at parental trauma. That is something that I do here quite frequently. It is something that a lot of us can come together and relate on. And so today I am bringing another healthy dose of some parental trauma conversation, validation, and relatability. And that is talking about narcissistic mothers, which is a massive cause as to why a lot of people end up in therapy is narcissistic mothers, or just emotionally dysregulated mothers in general. But you hear a lot of talk specifically about narcissistic mothers. And so I wanted to have a look at what some people are saying and their experiences and some like skits and that sort of thing, and have just a little bit of a talk about it. Now, a disclaimer here is that I obviously am not like a psychiatrist. I'm not diagnosing anyone with anything at all. So I personally don't believe my mother is narcissistic. However, I do believe she struggles with undiagnosed borderline. And I know that because I have diagnosed borderline. And also I have friends who have narcissistic mothers whom I talked to while writing this video. So I'm not going into this completely blind. I also would like to say that obviously a lot of these videos I make about parental trauma are very largely focused on mothers, and there's very little discussion about fathers, and I have noticed that, and I would like to acknowledge that and say that I'm not doing that on purpose. It's just that talking about problematic mothers and things like crunchy moms, almond moms, narcissistic mothers, etc. There's a lot more content there. There are a lot more people who are talking about it, who are giving it a label. And I think that that partially comes down to the fact that a lot of fathers who fit these traits are just less present in their kids' lives. They aren't posting on social media about being a shitty parent and like gloating about it. And also they just don't have the same relationship with their kids. So you see different types of posts and discussion about dads, but it is usually that they are more absent, like less present, you know? So thought I wanted to put that out there. I'm not trying to target women or anything. That's just how it goes. And if anyone has any recommendations for dads I can talk about and where to find that content, let me know because I would love to make a video about it. Now that that's out of the way, let's have a bit of a talk about narcissistic mothers. Now, again, a lot of these are relatable for a lot of people who don't necessarily have narcissistic mothers, but just emotionally dysregulated mothers. And so if you relate to these, it doesn't necessarily mean that your mother has narcissism or is a narcissist. It just means needs weren't met and there was a lot of emotional dysregulation that occurred that can leave you with trauma. So I'm coming at it from that perspective. Okay, now that that's out of the way, actually gonna get into it.
I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, I secretly would rather see you struggle than do well for yourself. The more you struggle, the more you have to rely on me, which means I get to control you. I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, I had children to cater to my ego. The purpose of having kids is to teach blind obedience to me, not for them to be their own people. I'm their ruler. I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, you have to earn my love. I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, I've been emotionally unavailable your whole life. I didn't become a mom to meet your needs. I became a mom for you to meet mine. I'm a narcissistic mother. I can only love you for who I want you to be, not for who you are. As long as you do as I say, stick beside me in my toxic behavior and participate in the fantasy I've created in my head, you have nothing to worry about, my love.
I'm going to pause this one here because it's quite long and I feel like we need to talk about what's already occurred. And I find it so devastating and so upsetting, the amount of people who have kids just to have some kind of control, like having kids just to have a person to manipulate and control and like live through and be like, I created this person, I can control them to do what I want, and when they grow up they will have to look after me and do whatever I want, so I'm gonna like create this person to do everything I want. Raising a child to just be an extension of you, and it's way too common, and it's so upsetting. It's the fact that like literally anyone can have a kid for any amount of reasons, and far too many people have children purely for that reason of control. And you hear it with people being like, oh, you're not going to have kids? Who's going to look after you when you get old? Like, you're having kids specifically to cater to your needs? Then you shouldn't be having kids, you know? Like, if that's your reason for wanting children is just so you have someone to look after you, you shouldn't be a parent. And the same as like the needing to fit a mold to be worthy of love, to be like, you have to do all these things that I want you to do. I love you so much, but like, you have to do all these things and then you've earned my love. You don't just inherently get it. You have to earn my love, even though, you know, I put you on this earth completely against your will. Like, you didn't ask to be here. I'm the one who brought you here. But like, you know, you have to do everything I want you to because I put you here. Like, oh my God.
I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, I'd rather impress strangers and give the idea of a perfect family instead of actually having a healthy family dynamic. I don't really care about having a healthy family dynamic. As long as I get to post and keep up my false image, I'm fine. I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, I play my children against each other and make them compete for my attention. I can never let them have a close relationship and leave me out the middle. Never. I'm a narcissistic mother. Of course, I'm going to be a seemingly loving grandmother, but only to one grandkid. I have to use the same manipulative tactics I used on my kids when they were younger. How else am I going to get them to compete for my love? I'm a narcissistic mother. I'll never apologize for the way I treated you, but I'll blame you for the way that you reacted.
The needing people to compete for your love, like setting your children against each other and making them compete for your love is it's so fucked. And the thing is that obviously these are kids that are being set up who don't know any better, who think that this is the way that it always goes and who thinks that this is how it's meant to work and how it's meant to play out. And it's just so horrible that like all of this shit happens when you're kids. And this is how you learn about the world. This is how you learn about love. This is where the fucked upness comes, right? Like, you need to compete for love. You need to earn love. Every time they upset you, you don't get an apology. Instead, you get blamed for how you react. Like, if that's what you learn love is, you can see how that puts you in a really horrible position, right? I think that it's like so often neglected, that the fact that like you learn about relationships and yourself and the world and love and everything through what you see, which initially is like your parents. And so if your mother is teaching you this is how you get love and that this is what love looks like, you're going to end up in some pretty horrible situations. And it's so sad. And then they won't ever take accountability for that either, will they? It'll still be your fault. Because of course it will be. Fucked. It's fucked.
I'm a narcissistic mom. Of course everyone thinks I'm an amazing mom, except my own kids. I'm a narcissistic mom. Of course I'm proud of how smart my children are, but I took the same test when I was her age and I got 100%.
I love the logic behind this one because you know, and this is such a great show of how it's constantly taking away credit from your kids and putting it upon yourself, is that like, you know, I'm proud of how smart my kids are, but like I did better on that test, so therefore I'm better. But then the flip side is that if your kid did better, it would be like, wow, I'm such an amazing mom. Look how smart I raised my kid. Look how great I am at parenting my kid and making them so smart. Like either way, no matter which way it goes, there is a way to flip the situation and make it about themselves and just take away the credit from their kid and make them feel like less valued and less important, and like their achievement suddenly means less because it wasn't their achievement. It was their mother's. And that sucks super bad because you're being told that you are just an extension of another person and not your own person.
I'm a narcissistic mom. Of course I hope you have children just like you one day so you can see what I had to live through. I'm a narcissistic mom. Of course I think that you owe me simply for bringing you into this world, and don't forget, I can take you out of it.
Don't even get me started on parents who say you owe me because I brought you into this world. Don't even get me started. Hey, did you know that you had the choice to not do that? Did you know that, as my shirt says here, I did not ask to be born? You're the one who brought a human into the world. You did that yourself. That was a decision that you made, and you have to accept everything that comes along with that. If you are consenting to bringing a child into the world, you are consenting to dedicating a lot of your income and your time and your space. You are making that commitment. If you do not want to give that, then you do not become a parent. It is a very, very obvious sort of simple thing. If you are not willing to give for nothing in return, you do not become a parent. End of. Right? And ending it with the death threat thing. I brought you into this world, I could take you out of it. That's such an immensely fucked up thing to say. I've seen multiple people say that their parents will say this to them, and I am so sorry. I'm so sorry. That's so incredibly fucked up. That that's horrifying. That makes me so deeply upset, and I am so sorry if that is something you have ever had, because holy shit. Fucking hell.
I'm a narcissistic mom, and of course, if you tell me you want to talk about your feelings, I'm going to remind you that you are such a drama queen. I'm a narcissistic mom. Of course, when you finally go no contact and don't allow me to see my grandchildren, I'm going to let everyone know what a horrible, awful person you are. I'm a narcissistic mom. Of course, if you want to open up to me and tell me about how much I hurt you in your childhood, well, I'm sorry, I was such a terrible mother and nothing I ever did was good enough for you.
That last one. Apologizing for validation is the fucking worst. It's the worst when someone's like, I'm so sorry I hurt you. You should just break up with me because I'm the worst thing in the world. I'm clearly so bad for you. I'm sorry that I was the worst mother in the entire world. It was all my fault. I'm so sorry that I'm so horrible to you. And they're just doing it so that you look at them and you're like, no, you're not that bad. No, I'm sorry that I implied that. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. And then suddenly it's all about them and not about you, even though you're the one who said that you were upset, but they can't take that. They don't want to accept the fact that they've upset you, and their emotions are more important, and they want to be validated. They don't want to validate you because that's not important. And nothing makes me more pissed off and upset and mad than that does. I have been around that sort of attitude from a lot of people in my life, and recently I didn't fall for it. Someone said that to me, and I was like, you know what? I'm not feeding into this today. You can think that if you want to. And I was so proud of myself because that's such a hard thing to do. Just to not give in and to not validate it. After you've spent your entire life validating that sort of thing and trying to diffuse the situation, just not. Oh, I was so proud. I felt so proud. It was so difficult. But, it's possible to get to a place where you are able to do that, which is great. It's fantastic. And I hope that you get there one day, anyone who is struggling with this sort of behavior. I also realized I forgot to say at the beginning, obviously these things like narcissism, BPD, etc., other emotional dysregulation sort of things, a lot of them are actual mental or personality disorders. And I understand that these are things that cannot be helped. If you are a narcissist, that is a mental health diagnosis. And I understand that this is just kind of that is something that you can't change about yourself. However, as within the almond bum video that I talked about, there is a difference between having a psychological issue and making that everyone else's problem. You can be a narcissist and also a good person. If you are a narcissist and you know that it is affecting people around you, then it is your responsibility to seek help for that and to learn other ways to overcome this and deal with the emotional dysregulation and the way that you exist and interact with people. It is not on your children to try to help emotionally regulate you. It is not on your children to take on that pain from you. And if you are in a position where you are completely unable to emotionally regulate and you are completely unable to not cause harm to people, you shouldn't have children. If you are aware that that is not something you are going to be able to control and you know that you are going to end up traumatizing your kids effectively, then you need to really consider having kids and at least first take steps into not doing that. I understand that like living with narcissism, it's like not something you can help, but you are able to help how you live with it, you know? Anyway, I just wanted to put that out there. Like I have BPD, which can cause me to struggle to regulate my emotions, and it can cause me to have like unhealthy thoughts or urges in how I interact with people or how I want to respond to things. But I've spent years in therapy, and now I am able to think about things and not do that, you know? This is signs of emotionally immature parents.
Mom, I'd really like to talk to you about some of the things that happened when we were little. Okay. What is it you want to talk about? Well, first of all, when you and Dad got divorced, it was really hard on me.
Let me guess. This is one of those conversations where you tell me I'm the worst mother on the planet and everything is my fault.
No, Mom, this is just me trying to talk to you about some of the things that happened. I'm on a healing journey, and I just thought that
You're on a healing journey? What is it that you have to heal from? A mom who loved you and put up with your shit your entire life and gave all she could to you and your sisters? Is that what you have to heal from?
Mom, I know all you did for us, and I appreciate you. I just thought that we could talk about some of the things that happened so that we could have a better relationship.
Oh, and you can't talk to me because I'm just the worst mother on the planet, huh?
The black and white lens is infuriating. Oh my gosh, the emotional immaturity in black and white lens is the most frustrating thing in the entire world. It's like, hey, you did something that upset me. Oh, so I'm the worst person in the world? It's like, no, whoa. Whoa, I did not say that. You are taking words out of my mouth. Did you know that you can be like a good person who does bad things and like vice versa? Did you know that I can love you and dislike things that you have done and things that you do? Like it is, you can have both. And having actual conversations where you listen to one another and validate one another is kind of important to building healthy relationships. And like, this is the reason why so many people go no contact. This whole thing is just like trying to have conversations to like heal from past wounds, and just being completely shut down and refusing to have a conversation. That's why your kids stopped talking to you, because you don't listen. Like, I'm sorry that the guilt is too much to bear. I'm sorry that you don't want to face the fact that you have caused harm to your child. It doesn't change the fact that you have. And sometimes you need to acknowledge that in order to work through that. Your emotions are definitely not more important than your child's emotions are. Okay? This says, yeah, my daughter has a full-time job, studies full-time, and moved out at a young age. I did a great job of raising her. And then it has the song that's like, take your name out of your mouth. But the lyrics are slightly changed to, take my name out of your mouth. You don't deserve the credit, you just love the attention. And I know a few people with this experience where they went through a lot of childhood trauma. They went through a lot at the hands of a mother who constantly put themselves first, and I would argue is a narcissist. And then now they like live independently and have a successful job and are living a great life. And they obviously did it despite all the bullshit that they were given their entire life from their parents, and specifically their mother. And their mother is like, but like, you know, you're doing so well now though. So like, it was obviously all worth it. I know that I made your life difficult sometimes, but you know, all the pain and all the struggle, it made you stronger. You're welcome. I did all of this. Like, you can complain about how depressed you were, but it just made you stronger. And it's like, what? You cannot say, hey, I know I traumatized you, but like, it gave you the strength to get where you are. Nothing can get you down now. Or like also just ignoring the trauma completely and just being like, I did a fantastic job raising you because look, you're living such a great life now. It's like, no, this isn't your doing. Imagine what could have happened if you didn't like completely stunt people's growth. Like, it's sitting there being like, wow, you're so successful and you're doing so good. I did so well. Just entirely looking at like money and career rather than like emotional stuff. So it's like, wow, you're doing so good because you have a good paying job, but like ignoring the fact that, you know, there is like severe depression and like the fear of interacting with people. And like, it's insane. It's insane. You're doing so good. Monetary success and like being happy are two different things. And I think that both of those are important. And I think that happiness is a better thing to claim success for. So, you know, fuck off, maybe. You aren't to have the credit for the success of your child. And you don't get to just completely brush over all the bullshit because it ended up okay from an outside perspective.
A day in the life of a narcissistic mother. As usual, I wake up in the morning and I have my nice big cup of haterade. So good. Now it's time to pick which mask I'm gonna wear for the day, and I have a trick up my sleeve to get even more supply from my adult daughter, so I choose the loving mother mask. It's love bombing time, so I call my daughter, I tell her just how amazing she is and how much I love her, and I ask her if she'd like to go to brunch with me and maybe do some shopping later. She actually says yes, so I know I am in control. Today is gonna be such a great day. I'm so excited for all the supply I'm getting today. We go to brunch to a nice restaurant. I decide it's time for some well-deserved drama after a long week. I judge my daughter for what she's eating, body shame her, and tell her she made a stupid choice. She's not reacting the way I wanted to, so I decide now it's time to cause a scene in the restaurant and berate the waitress because the air conditioning is too high, I don't like the music they're playing, and I decide to pretend my water glass was a little bit dirty. You have to make them work for their tip.
This is a long TikTok, so I'm gonna stop it here and just be like, God. Love bombing is the worst. It's so horrible the way that these people just do everything to try and receive supply from you. It's like that whole push and pull, that whole being like hurting you to the point where like you yell and there's like, oh, you care enough to like yell at me. And I'm getting that like attention that I crave, to then obviously not talking for a bit, to then being like, oh, well, now I need to show you how much I love you so you come back to me so I can hurt you again. And because you spend your whole life like craving that affection from your mother, because you spend your entire life just like all you want to do is make your mother happy and get that love from her because you've been like starved of it. But when you're given it, it's like the best thing. It's like that treat. It's like that, oh my God, I've got love from my mother that I crave so much. And they know that. So they know that when they're like, no, I love you so much, let's get food. You're like, oh my God, maybe it's going to be different this time. Oh my God, I am loved. I'm receiving that love that I crave from my mother. And it's so sad. It's so sad. And it's so hard to break out of that too. And like a lot of people end up going no contact from relationships like this, which is completely fair enough. But that must be such a hard decision to make too. Like when you spent your entire life, all you want to do is like get that approval and respect and love from your mother. It's like a drug. It's like addictive. It's like you will do anything you can to get that because you've been told that is everything. And it sucks so bad. It's horrible. And all the while, they know that they're doing this, but like don't think of it as a problem and like refuse to acknowledge what it actually is and that it is doing really any harm because they don't really think much outside of how it's impacting them. And it just like hurts so bad. It's just awful. And I'm so sorry for everyone who experiences this sort of thing.
The 8 signs your mom is a narcissist. Sign number 1 is that your mother sees you as an extension of her. Sign number 2 is that she can dish out tons of criticism, but can't take any of it herself. Moving on to sign number 3 is that she shares private information about you with others without your permission. Sign number 4 is that she holds basic parental duties over your head. Sign number 5, she doesn't respect boundaries. Sign number 6, they will constantly tell you that you are remembering things wrong. Sign number 7 is that she's always competing with you. And sign number 8, she is always the victim. And all these signs can cause us to be anxious, a perfectionist, or struggle with all sorts of other mental health issues.
So I wanted to include this one because of everything I've been saying so far, right? Of like a lot of us think that these behaviors are normal and something that everyone experiences. And then you kind of find out that like, oh no, maybe it's not so normal. And you get older and you realize like how interconnected everything is. Like as you reflect on your entire life, you realize the way that like your parents treated you and the way you interacted with them and the rules that existed and the things that happened. You piece it together and realize how much of that has made up you and the way you continue to interact with the world. And like, I have been in therapy for a decade and I'm still working through this spiral. I still have moments where I'm like, oh, so that's, that's why I react that way. Oh, well, that's why I have terrible abandonment issues, right? I understand. I get it. It's from this thing. And then like, you know, and I think that it's important to sort of just like have this conversation and just like show these things. Now, obviously doing all of these things doesn't necessarily make you a narcissist. Not doing all of them doesn't necessarily make you not a narcissist. You know, there could be other issues there. And regardless of anything, none of it is okay. And none of it is an okay way to be treating your child and raising your child. I have stories for a couple of these though. I think I've talked about one of them before, but like I always will remember, like I'm always so cautious of sharing stories about my childhood and my parents and things because I constantly have a fear of them watching my videos or people watching my videos and telling them about it. So I always, I never really know what to do and where the line is because I do have like a good relationship with my mother at this point. But this reminds me, one of these things reminds me of like a story I have of one time I couldn't find my car keys. I couldn't find my car keys and someone had borrowed my car the day before and I was like, you borrowed my car, so I assumed you had the car keys. And to that, the response was very much like, why is it always my fault? Why is everything my fault? Why will you never take accountability? How dare you blame me for this thing? Everything is always my fault. And ended up in like a silent treatment that lasted for far too long and having to pay several $100s for a new car key because it was a like an auto like button on the door, button ignition kind of thing. So it's a really expensive new car key and I had to like borrow my mom's car for the week. And then after all of this, a few weeks later, they found the car key in their jacket pocket and laughed and was like, oh, isn't that funny? Yup. Great. Well, yes. Hilarious. I had such a good time. It was so great. Stuff like that, you know, happens a lot. It wasn't like a one-off sort of occasion, but that's the one that frustrates me the most considering it was so expensive and it meant I didn't have my own car for several days. But, you know, that's just an example. And yeah, I feel like a lot of us have sort of similar stories around that sort of thing of just like everything kind of being your fault, but then you're told that you're making it their fault. You say someone's done something to upset you and then they turn it around and somehow they're suddenly the victim and it's like, why do you always blame me for everything? It's like, well, I don't, but like sometimes it is your fault. Why do you always blame me for everything is the real question here. Because like every time I say that you've upset me, suddenly you're the victim and I've done something wrong. So I'm confused as to the conversation here. Everything is your fault, but like, no, somehow everything is my fault, though. And this is how we got here. Anyway.
It's like, it takes a lot for like a grown child not to speak to their parents anymore.
I don't think people understand when you grow up in a household, right, where it seems like everything your parent does is correct and every decision your parents make are the right decisions because you personally don't know the difference between right or wrong yet until you get older and you realize, oh, maybe the things that my parents did growing up wasn't the right things to do. So then when you bring that to them when you get older and their response is to either not take accountability or they'll say like, oh, that never happened, or they'll say you're being ungrateful. That is an experience that can change the trajectory of your life because you grow up trying to not be your parents. So you have to reconstruct yourself into an entirely different person. And if your parent refuses to learn who that new person is, it causes a disconnect. And you might not want to be there for your parents when they're older because they refuse to learn who you are at all.
Ooh. Oh, this is so true though, right? For a lot of people of like, yeah, you do become your own person, especially when you're restricted as a kid to not being allowed to be your own person. If you aren't allowed to have your own like desires or opinion, you're not allowed to do things of your own without like having it be turned into being an extension of one of your parents or something or rather. Like once you do become an adult and you start unlearning everything you learned and you start questioning things and developing your own personality, you suddenly don't fit into this idea of the person they thought you were, the person that they were molding you to be. And that's hard for them. Obviously, they don't want you to be this person because that's not who they raised. You are no longer someone they can control. So they either expect you to revert back into who you used to be, which is something that a lot of people do, which is understandable. It's a very easy thing to like regress into who you used to be. They either expect you to do that or they just continue to treat you like they did when you were a child, and they continue to not acknowledge any growth or accept any success that you've had on your own outside of them. And that is how a lot of people end up going no contact, because it's like, I'm sick of you not acknowledging who I am as a person. You know, it's like, this isn't who you can't treat me like I am a child because I'm not. You cannot treat me how I was 10 years ago, and that's not who I am anymore. We are continuously growing and changing, and we are our own people, you know? And far too many parents, and even like extending outside of parents, just far too many family members just like refuse to acknowledge that and refuse to acknowledge any growth or change because it doesn't fit with the idea of what they want you to be as a person.
In case any of you were wondering what it's like to be an adult and have a crazy narcissistic parent, I sold my house and didn't have a new house to buy because it sold way quicker than I intended. My mother begged me, and I mean begged me, to come live with them. As soon as I moved in, shit started getting toxic real quick. And I told her that I would be leaving. She continued to fight with me, do whatever. So anyway, we found a rental property, moved out. Yesterday I came back to get some of my stuff, and my mom physically pushed me several times, tried to shove me out the door and lock the door behind me. Anything that I put outside to put in my car, as soon as I went to get more stuff, she would drag it back inside and then again try to lock me out. All while my 5-year-old was inside screaming for me. She then called the cops and told the cops that I broke her back door because she was trying to push me out of it. I was trying to stay inside, and it came off the hinge a little bit. The door is fine. I told the cops my side of the story. They told me to stay away from her. Well, the problem is the bus drops her here. So now I'm sitting next to their house. I'm going to get my kid from the bus and we're going to leave. But as I pull up, there's just stuff of mine sitting outside. So yesterday I wasn't allowed to take anything because she had no control over it. Today, she's putting my stuff outside so she can have some control over it. So, cheers.
It's just all about control, isn't it? It's all about that manipulation and the being in control at all times. It's like, well, you want this, so I'm going to do that because then you're going to have to give me attention and fight me for it. And you want to do that, so now I'm going to do this. I'm going to take full control over the situation, and I'm going to make you miserable in the process of it because that benefits me, because it means that you care about me. You're giving me attention. And like, it's just so fascinating that like being unable to tell the difference between like positive and negative affection, or like being able to tell the difference but not caring. That's not something that makes any sense to me at all. And I think that this is one of the things that like makes therapy so worthwhile, is that, you know, I don't know how therapy for narcissism works or anything, but like learning the difference between like positive and negative attention and how to make sure you gain positive attention and trying to steer it towards being positive attention. Because it is possible to continuously get positive attention and positive affection if you like are able to manage that correctly. But people refuse that they have a problem, and they don't want to be told they have a problem. So they continuously do this and just cause pain to people because it gets them the attention that they want. And like I say, it is so black and white to like narcissists and to people with like personality disorders. It's so frustrating of it's either like you love me or you hate me, you're with me or against me. And it's like, that's not how this works. That's not how this works at all. I can want to spend time with you sometimes, and like when I don't want to, it doesn't mean that I hate you. It just means I need my own space. Like I can live with you for a little bit, but it's not going to be forever. Like it's frustrating that there is such a hard line for these people and they refuse to get help and try to find the gray of it. I don't know. And I know that therapy is helpful for that because I am in therapy and I talk about borderline, and like that's a disorder that has a lot of like black and white lines and is very easy to set off. And I am in a place where it's not very easily set off, and I do have like good emotional regulation because I have worked on it, because I don't want to hurt people, because I am aware of my actions and I take accountability. And I don't want to hurt people. I don't want to have outbursts. I don't want to manipulate people or unintentionally cause harm. Like, you know? So like, I know that you can get help. And I know that you don't have to be acting this way, but it's easier. So they do. I had to go no contact with my mom because our signs aren't compatible. I'm a Cancer and she's narcissistic with untreated mental illness and the inability to admit she's ever done anything wrong in her life. Oh, that's so real though, right? Like, they're never going to admit to anything being wrong, and they're never going to admit to them having anything wrong with them either. In my instance, it's so funny because like I don't use a label for my sexuality, obviously, right? I identify as queer. Labels don't work for me, but I do use labels when it comes to mental health because it does help me feel more understood and less alone in that. So like I have ADHD, I have PTSD, I have a bunch of other shit going on in my brain, and I find that helpful, and it helps me manage my symptoms and like go through it in therapy and like get medication, etc. But my mother doesn't like labels, and that extends into all of that. She's like, no labels for me. I don't find them helpful. I don't think they're necessary. She's had diagnoses and she's like, I don't agree with it. I don't like it. It's not for me. And so then we're left in the like, yeah, no, there's not going to be any acknowledgement of any mental illnesses that exist. And I think that that is a common thing among people in like my parents' generation of like, you know, mental illness and mental health is like quite taboo. And it's so interesting because like in my household, my mom does take mental health very seriously. She always acknowledged it as a thing. Like I had mental health days at school if I ever needed them. I had one mental health day a term guaranteed. Like I could choose any day a term to take off school and I didn't need a reason. And then I had other mental health days if I needed more time, then that was totally okay. And like she put me in therapy multiple times when I was young. Like she took it very seriously, and I'm very glad that she took my mental health so seriously. But it's really funny that that didn't reflect back onto her taking care of her own mental health. I guess it's maybe like a thing of like, it's too late for me, or not wanting to acknowledge things that are going on, or what? I don't know. But it's interesting. I'm glad that our generation, or at least the people around me, are cycle breakers. Getting help, seeking help, and refusing to carry on that cycle. So love that for us. With that, I think I'm actually at the end of these. I love these videos that I do because they do end up just being a bit of oversharing, a bit of ranting, and I hope they sort of work in terms of just like, I don't know, it's nice to come here and like help validate one another, you know what I mean? Like I feel like it's talked about, but it's not really talked about. And I think a lot of the time, you know, we don't really realize what we've gone through has been a bit fucked up. And I think that it's really important to acknowledge as well that like you can love someone and also acknowledge ways that they have hurt you. Like if you have a narcissistic mother, or a mother who did not meet your needs as a child, or like a mother who you have a rocky relationship with, or just a parent in general, like you can go no contact, and that is totally, totally fair, and you absolutely deserve that. And you also can develop a relationship with them that works for you, and that is not the case for everyone. Some people, there is a very hard line, and that is completely fair. It completely depends on circumstance and everything that you have experienced in your life, and I am in full support of people who choose to go no contact, and I think more people should choose to go no contact. But I also would like to reflect the other side, where like depending on obviously your situation, the relationship you have, and the things that you have experienced, you are also still able to have a relationship with your mother, with your parent, that you are able to work out. Sometimes space helps, sometimes time helps, sometimes you can learn that respect, sometimes they can seek help, or you can end up having conversations. My relationship with my mother has gotten significantly better since I moved away, and I'm very glad for it. And, you know, I say that to a lot of people, I feel like not all the time, but like moving away and gaining your independence and having your own life can really help relationships that have been difficult in the past, because you have your own sort of space and your own ability to grow. I've been in the position where I've like never questioned my mother's like love for me or anything. So like I know that I have like a relationship with my mom that has a good foundation, and we can like talk, and I do love my mother, while acknowledging that, you know, some of the things I experienced and some of the ways we interact and have interacted in the past haven't been good for me. I'm able to have the relationship that I do with her, and I wish to continue that, and that's good and okay, and you are able to do that if that is what you wish, and you're also allowed to completely cut contact if that is what you wish. It is entirely up to you, and don't let anyone else tell you what decision you can make, because no one can make that decision for you. Like, especially with narcissistic mothers, they are so very often, you know, they want to put on like a good front so everyone sees them as this great mom who is wonderful, and like, oh my god, you're so lucky to have such a wonderful mom, and then, you know, that validates the behavior because you think that they are correct, that is what's happening. And so when you're older and you realize, no, this actually wasn't okay, I want to go no contact, you have people invalidating you saying, just give her a chance, she's your only mom, blah, blah, blah. But like, only you know what you've experienced, and only you know what is going to be best for you. And like, it can be hard to accept the fact that you might hurt someone you've spent your entire life trying to gain the approval of. But sometimes it is so worth it. And, you know, if that's something that you want to do or are contemplating doing, I highly do say, you know, like, I hope you find the strength to be able to do that, or at least even if you go no contact for a short amount of time, like, give yourself space to figure everything out and like learn how to have that conversation, to confront your mother, to like talk about what needs to be talked about and see how it goes. Despite what you've been told your entire life, family isn't everything. You can create your own family. Like, you don't need your biological family. You don't need your mother or your father or your sister or your brother. Like, you don't need them. It's nice to have them, but only if the relationship you have is good. It's not worth the hassle sometimes. So do what is right for you. I hope that you have like possibly learned something from this video. I hope that we can come together and be like, God, yeah, sometimes, you know, everyone needs a little bit of therapy. Myself and my parents and everyone around me would really benefit from it. So I wish it was more accessible, and I wish it was destigmatized long before it actually was. But, you know, here we are. I hope that you enjoyed this video. Please don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I upload videos every few days, and I would love to see you again. A massive thank you to my Sprout and Above patrons, whose names are up on the screen right now. I appreciate you greatly. And a huge, huge thank you to my Kiwi Cat patrons: Michaela, Natasha, Lady Nutbar, Mr. Noodle, Radsack, Knitting Menace, Samuel, Chris, Elias, Danielle, Eldo, Jessica, Ikazel, Mandy, Josh, and Bobby. I love and appreciate you so, so much. Thank you so much for joining. If anyone else would like to become a patron, you can go to patreon.com/SavvyCat. Click the top link in the description. For as little as £1 a month, you get my videos a day early, and then for £3 and up, you get things such as outtakes, bonus mini podcasts, live streams, vlogs, and more. Don't forget to follow me on Instagram, The Queer Kiwi, and Twitter, That Queer Kiwi. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe. Keep fighting. I love you. Mwah.